and she doesn't know what's coming.
MMA is a sport driven on the unpredictable. Surprise results often come out of nowhere, and 2017 proved no exception to this rule. This is a list of some of the biggest shocks from mainstream promotions last year, from short notice barn burners to unlikely champions. Welcome to INC, and these are the 5 biggest MMA upsets from 2017. Number 5. Darren Elkins vs Mirsad Bektic. Darren "The Damage" Elkins was an overlooked figure in MMA, until a career-defining performance placed himself firmly on the sport's radar. By 2017, Elkins earned a reputation as a featherweight journeyman, capable of grinding out tough performances with 8 of his 10 wins coming by decision. Despite a 3-fight winning streak, little was expected of Elkins entering the new year, when he took on unbeaten prospect Mirsad Bektic at UFC 209. Bektic was considered one of the best up-and-comers in the sport, finishing 5 of his first 11 opponents in the first round and entering the fight as an 8-1 favourite over Elkins. For 2 rounds, the match went with the form book, with Bektic controlling the match on the ground and opening a cut over Elkins' eye early in the first. Somehow, Elkins was able to survive the onslaught, and as the Bosnian gassed in the third, pulled off one of the greatest comebacks in UFC history. Elkins proved the fight wasn't a fluke by beating Dennis Bermudez 4 months later, and currently sits on a record of 23 wins and 5 losses. Number 4. Zach Freeman vs Aaron Pico. Few MMA prospects have been more heavily hyped than Aaron Pico. The Californian had been billed as the first purebred MMA athlete, a junior Golden Gloves champion, and considered one of the world's best freestyle wrestlers at just 19 years old. After years of hype and endorsements, Pico made his MMA debut against Zach Freeman at Bellator NYC. Freeman was an 8-2 veteran who spent most of his career in Missouri regional promotions, and was expected to offer little threat against much lauded Pico.
He's hurt! Bringing the gun! Already rocked! Pico and Freeman looking for the choke! That's a tight guillotine! And Mamma Mia! Zach Freeman has done it!
In just 20 seconds, Freeman had derailed the Pico hype train, helping to create a cautionary tale of over-promotion at the sport's top level. Freeman failed to repeat his heroics, losing his next fight to Saad Awad, while Pico got the chance to finally show his potential against Justin Lin 3 months later.
Pico beginning to show! Mamma Mia! What a left hook! Pico closes the book on this matchup!
Number 3. Brent Primus vs Michael Chandler. Bellator NYC was considered a watershed moment for the promotion, and just a few hours after Pico, fans in Madison Square Garden witnessed another shock performance. At the turn of the year, Michael Chandler had cemented his place as one of Bellator's biggest stars, winning the lightweight title in 2016 and holding notable wins over Eddie Alvarez and Benson Henderson. At the company's showpiece event, Chandler made the second defense of his belt against Jiu-Jitsu black belt Brent Primus. Despite being unbeaten, Primus was considered an unknown outside the MMA community, and expected to offer little threat against a 16-3 champion. Early in the fight, Chandler slipped while evading Primus's high kick, twisting his ankle in the process and leading Primus to target the champion's leg throughout the first 2 minutes. Chandler was barely able to stand, forcing doctors to inspect the damage and bringing an end to the fight 3 minutes into the first round.
And back-to-back shockers at Madison Square Garden! Brent Primus, in his 8th professional fight, 8 is enough to become Bellator lightweight champion!
The decision made Primus the new Bellator lightweight champion, claiming Chandler's title, winning streak, and, as it turned out, his dignity too. Both men haven't fought since the June match, and with Chandler interested in moving to welterweight, plans for a high-profile rematch have been put on hold for now. Number 2. Josh Emmett vs Ricardo Lamas. Short notice fighters are often the source of MMA upsets, and nobody found that out worse than featherweight number 3 Ricardo Lamas. For nearly a decade, Lamas have been a staple in the top echelon to the featherweight division, claiming wins over Cub Swanson and challenging Jose Aldo for the featherweight title at UFC 169. The two were set to rematch at Fox 26, but after Aldo stepped up to face Max Holloway, Lamas instead took on Josh Emmett, an unranked and unknown fighter taking the match on 2 weeks' notice. For the first 2 minutes, Emmett appeared unfazed by the occasion, troubling the veteran with hooks as Lamas struggled to start his kicking game on the outside. Emmett remained gung-ho throughout, believing if he kept busy, something would land to change the fight's complexion, and entering the final minute of the first, it did.
Emmett would appear to have the power advantage here early. Lamas, though, at least statistically, has been the more efficient striker. Down and out goes Lamas! Josh Emmett lighting him up in Winnipeg!
Oh my goodness, left hook!
In one swoop, Emmett had transformed from an unknown into one of the top stars of the featherweight division, one that hopes to prove his doubters wrong heading to 2018. And at number 1, Namajunas vs Joanna Jedrzejczyk. For 10 years, Joanna Jedrzejczyk has been the benchmark of MMA's strawweight division, dominating the world's top female fighters with some of the highest level striking ever seen in an octagon. By the end of the year, Joanna was unbeaten in 14 fights and widely considered the pound for pound female in the world, when she took on 6-3 Rose Namajunas at UFC 217. Namajunas meanwhile was the number 4 fighter riding a 1-fight winning streak, her biggest wins coming against Tisha Torres and former Invicta Atomweight champion Michelle Waterson. Namajunas surprised in the stand-up game early, tagging Joanna with multiple left hands before dropping the champ 2 minutes into the fight. Many felt Rose's best chance of winning was by taking the match to the ground, so many at Madison Square Garden weren't prepared for what happened next.
Well, Rose... Oh!
Another knockdown! Rose Namajunas trying to close the show!
She was doing a great job of feet.
That's it!
It's over!
Rose Namajunas!
Rose!
Rose!
With the win, Namajunas became only the 3rd woman ever to hold the UFC strawweight title, and by overcoming huge odds and beating the champ at her own game, earned our nomination as 2017's biggest upset.
Man, sound like butter. Sound like butter.
And now time for a few honourable mentions. Donald Cerrone was on the wrong end of 2 big shocks this year, first to Jorge Masvidal and Darren Till 7 months later. Eva Hardy was billed as Bellator's answer to Holly Holm, until she ran into Christina Williams' knee.
Halloween's coming early, look at this!
John Jones suffered a shock result this year, from USADA that is. This is the INC, and thank you for watching.